What's up, friends? I wanted to take a little bit of time today to talk about how everything started and how I ended up Vandwelling and kind of the philosophy behind why I personally got behind this. I guess got into this. Uh, Everybody does this for different but yet similar reasons, and I thought since I was going to be, I guess, video blogging and doing DIY stuff, that I would share my reasons with you. I guess for starters, when I was very young, I got into the punk rock lifestyle. DIY, anti-authority, a lot of times like anti-material possessions, anti-capitalist, things like that, and it just resonated in me. I've never been the kind of person that saw the value in things that a lot of people seem to pursue in life. Material possessions, having like this big boss career, or amazing cars, or anything else that people tend to gravitate to in life. To me, it seemed that solid human relationships and meaningful memories and experiences far outweighed anything that you could possibly acquire with money. That stuff gets taken away from you really easy, and I am definitely a example of that. And that mentality kind of carried through my life. I watched Fight Club, and for some reason, it just hit the mentality home even more, as I guess generic as that is. And it carried through me, and part of me was conflicting with the idea of all this shit I didn't need or want, and not wanting to work a 9 to 5, and not wanting to go make somebody else rich on my hard work, and clearly being different. It made me feel like an outsider a lot of the time, and I guess there's a lot of people that do this, that say that maybe they don't really fit in anywhere else. And then it wasn't until I was much older that I started hiking and discovered just how much I love the wilderness and the wild places of the world, and how much that called to me, and how much travel and the idea of those things really appealed to me. And so I guess that was the last vestige of brainwashing, for lack of better words, that snuck into me, or had snuck into me, that I basically eradicated with that. And I'd found a home, and my dreams went from being how can I have a bigger computer to play games, or a larger TV, to how can I get some land and build a house, and a small house, and live off the grid, and learn how to become more self-sufficient, and learn how to be a little bit more careful of the environment, and the impact I'm making on it, and how can I grow my own food, those kinds of things. And for years that stuck with me as a dream, and yet I kept working constantly. I kept paying rent, I kept paying for all these other things that I didn't even need, and really even want, so to speak. I guess it was just when you do this for so long, you end up like giving in to all this stuff, and just becoming a part of it, because it's easier than arguing with people, and it's easier than the weird looks you sometimes get when you just don't seem to care about most of the crap that people seem to care about anymore. And so up until last year, I was renting a house from a friend in the country, and it was a really nice house, and everything had seemed to be going on as usual. In my particular case, I've spent the last 12 years being a DJ in adult entertainment clubs. You don't have to work much, and you made a lot of money, and a lot of it was cash and easy to move around. And I hated it. I hated it then, and I didn't think it was a very positive thing for my soul. And as somebody that's always asked for asked and searched for answers. Um, I think trying to keep your soul and your conscience and whatnot clear and trying to live a good life is important. And I had met somebody, and I'd met them in the business, and we had both, talked about getting out, and I thought I was going to get married. And I did the reckless and impulsive thing and quit my job. Took a low paying job for an environmental activist group that ended up not working out. And I didn't even care because I thought I was, off to go start this new life with somebody that um, had similar views as me and whatnot. And I didn't even mind that, I was going to go from, having more money than I knew what to do with to being pretty poor, because happiness for me has always been in the smaller things. Um, it wasn't too long after I made that decision that things got too tough for the person I was with, and she decided to leave, and that put me in a really bad spot. Um, I had a lot of bills that were based on a higher income level, and no income coming in, and uh, it was a pretty disastrous time as far as that goes. And I had heard about a van through a mutual friend, and I knew that I was going to lose most of the things that I had at the time. I had already been selling a lot of my stuff off to make bills and stuff like that, and I decided to buy the van. I've always been the kind of person that was inspired, by people like Thoreau or the movie or book Into the Wild or anything like that, and have always wanted to just put a backpack on and go without worrying about any of that stuff. But I have a 6-year-old, and that you know, being a good father means being available and part of your child's life. And I knew I couldn't take the journey like that, and I knew I had to stay somewhat close to the area that my child was living in order to be a part of his life. So it seemed like a good compromise, and so I, used what little money I had, uh, and bought a van and drove it home. At the time, I was working a job that wasn't paying very much, and I was struggling pretty hard. And so, no prior knowledge of construction, no prior knowledge of any of this kind of stuff, but just that DIY attitude that makes you want to go out and learn how to do things. So I got on Google, and I got on cheaprvliving.com and lots of other van dwelling sites, and I studied how people had built their vans. I learned very basic construction stuff, and I took what money I had and I converted the van, and turned it into something that's home for me, with no knowledge and no whatever. And part of that spawned, I guess, from financial need. Having to sell a 3-bedroom house worth of stuff that I didn't need. I was only using a couple rooms in the house, and downsize myself and try to put the money together to not only to eat, but to pay what bills I did have while I was making this conversion, and to be okay. And I ended up doing all of that over the course of a couple months. All right, so like I said, I did this over the course of several weeks, couple months, and I ended up, learning how to convert the van and how to do a lot of things, all by myself that were going to give me some freedom. For a couple reasons. I had decided no matter what happened at this point that I was going to have my dream in the end. I was going to own land. I was going to learn how to be self-sufficient. I was going to eliminate all these bills that I didn't need to be paying for stuff I didn't need. Um, and once it was done, I gave up the house, um, and moved out. And I had some help on the way, with a lot of different stuff. Places to stay, other things, whatnot. Before I made the full transition, to van dwelling. And as it stands with it right now, um, 15 days out of the month, I pay to stay on a cheap campground, that's beautiful and has free power hookups. It's the only cheap campground in this part of Ohio, which is northeastern part of Ohio. Um, and then the other 15 days, when I'm not allowed to be staying there, I'm basically stealth camping. I do still have a car. It was the one thing I haven't been able to get out of, and the van, not so great on the gas mileage anyway. So when I'm on the campground, it's great because the van can be set up, pulled out almost like you might an RV or something at a spot, and I can use the car to commute smaller places. Stealth camping is a little bit different. I've had to find somewhere to leave the car, and then drive the van around and drive a lot less. But I guess for me, financially, was it was the push that made all of this happen. I guess ruin or destitution or whatever you want to call it, that happens after you make some bad decisions, or stuff happens to you. Um, that was the thing, that the trigger, I guess, the catalyst that led me to actually doing this. But this kind of lifestyle is something that's appealed to me almost my entire life. You can ask anybody that's known me, and I've talked about this for probably as long as they've known me. And I guess it's that fear that you're not going to be okay, or fear that you're going to be judged, or fear, whatever your personal fear is, if you're thinking about doing this, that keeps you from doing it. And once you hit that point where you let go, and you stop caring about that stuff anymore, it's phenomenal, liberating in so many ways. Not just having, much more control of your life and what you're doing with it. Um, More mental health, I would say. I mean, doing this certainly comes with its own issues, but I can tell you that since I started doing this, I've been more content with every other part of my life, than I have been in a real long time. And so, financially, I guess that was the push that did it. But philosophically, like, I think that's the most important part to me. We live in a world right now that's collapsing, an environment that's falling apart. Where millions of species are going extinct, and we're literally destroying this planet to keep up with our habits, to keep up with our eating habits, to keep up with transportation, and having 46 of the same thing that we don't need, and all that stuff. And living these comfortable little secure lives, and then always wondering why something just doesn't feel right, why we never just hit that point. And for me, the adversity of overcoming obstacles, I'm not even sure if I said that right, um, is really something that's important, to your life. Being able to take the things that happen to you and turn them into, engines for good, and introspection, and learning to live a little bit more at peace, with yourself and with the world around you, is important. Spiritually, which is something I'd probably get into later, it's important too. And I don't know that you ever really get that when you surround yourself and bombard yourself every day with everything that society has to offer. No matter how good or entertaining or or whatever it is, you know. And I mean, I know too many people in my life that say they're happy, and yet all they do is medicate themselves with alcohol, um, you know, or do anything they have to do but to actually think about who they are and what it is that they actually would like to accomplish. You know, for me, it's love, I guess. You know, helping people, helping be a better person, trying to have people that come into contact with me feel better about themselves after having come into contact with me. Um, you know, it's about trying to find a place in a niche that um, makes me feel good. Uh, for me, this was so much more about the philosophical reasons than the financial reasons. The financial reasons were just the driving factor. And, you know, even now, I'm doing a job I hate. Um, it's slightly better than normal jobs. Slightly. Not really. I guess just more catered to me. And working toward, you know, not being able to do that. Uh, Working toward having the money and the freedom to be able to not worry about this stuff anymore. Because, I mean, for me, I guess the only thing that money really, the only real value to money is that it gives you freedom. Um, and so I guess that's kind of why, you know, I'm doing this, and why the reasons that brought me into it. Um, what my goal, I guess, here is you know, to kind of video blog. I'm sure some people are doing it. I don't know. You know, but this is my personal experience with it. And I live in a part of Ohio where um, there's no public land to park on. There's no, you know, free campgrounds. Nothing's cheap out here. It's a little bit, from what I can tell, it's a little bit harder to be able to do this as easily, especially when you're restricted to a smaller area, than a lot of places. Especially when you go out west and do this, where you have public land all over the place and you can just park and just go and everything else. So, you know, I guess part of that is to kind of document that. Part of it is maybe I can help other people that maybe in these kinds of positions. You know, I'm a super pro DIY and taking control of your life and your decisions, and getting to where you want to be. And you know, I don't know. I mean, that's that. So I should be posting lots of videos up as I record them. I'll have a blog going, and bunches of other stuff, and go from there with that and see what this turns into. So, thanks for watching. If you actually made it to the end of this, I'm probably not the best public speaker. I honestly don't care either. So, if you're looking to help out, I don't know if they'll be on there immediately, but I'll have links to a Facebook page, blog, anything like that, as well as other sites that help me get started in the way that I'm going, and people that are infinitely more knowledgeable than I am about what I'm doing. And you know, make sure that you click subscribe. Maybe share with your friends if you can. It really, you know, really helps out. And that's that. So I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.